Good morning, United. Welcome to another wonderful day. This is a video that's been put together to talk about the Drawing an Isometric Assignment 2.7 right now as the course exists. And it's a bit of a response to all of our grade 11s and 10s being asked to isolate for a couple of weeks, so we can make sure you guys get your stuff through AutoCAD Web Edition. That's what the premise of today is, just to make sure that we get all of that done. And we'll fade the music out here, why don't we? And with that being said, let's talk about AutoCAD Web Edition. You've become used to AutoCAD on the desktop, and that is a huge professional level program. It is a behemoth. It does everything you could ever want it to do and more. We will not even scratch the surface of the paint of that type of software with what we do with it in class. Not even close. But you should still be familiar with it. Now, AutoCAD Web App, and this is mostly for those of you who don't necessarily have as powerful of a computer to run, is a really powerful program because it can be run in a browser, which is going to save a lot of you in that sense, and it's going to allow you to actually do some of the AutoCAD stuff. All the stuff that we do, it can be done in the web app. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. You may need to create a free account here. I will post the link to the education edition, how to sign up for that. But at this point in our class, everybody's received their letter to say that they are a student at Nelson Mandela High School. They have received their, they've basically received the link to the website so that they can actually get access to that, and theoretically you should have an account set up and ready to go as a student. I have my education account set up as your teacher so that we can actually get started here. Now, when you get to AutoCAD web version, you're going to end up at a landing screen similar to this one. Yours should look almost like this. All I've done is I've created a new folder and I've dropped a test folder here. And I'm just going to use this to actually do our initials in isometric, which is today's assignment. And I'm going to do that by going to a new drawing. Now let's see what we do here. It's going to ask us our units, metric, imperial. For this, it doesn't really matter because you're trying to show me the difference between isometric and oblique. And units don't really matter on this one, to be perfectly honest. Okay, I'm going to call this initials in isometric and oblique. And we're going to create this file, and it's going to set up something that looks kind of familiar to us. Now let's do a tour, because stuff is kind of all in the wrong places. It's not quite where you think it is at this point. You'll notice that right now we're looking at the views menu, and we have a model view. We also have access to layout views. That's going to be really powerful when we have to export this, when we actually have to create this as an assignment and finish this up. Okay, we have a properties tab. This is the one that I always use, you know, kind of hanging out on the side of my workstate or my work pane, and it'll tell us what kind of all of the important things about our various lines and pieces of the drawing are. We have our layers, and I'm going to mess with this right now, and I'm going to create a new layer and call that layer my drawing layer, because that's what we've been doing for a lot of these initial drawings when we learn some techniques. Okay, it gives us obviously the option to show it and lock it if we want to. It also lets us change its color. I'm going to turn it yellow so that you can see it on the screen here, and so that we can start drawing. Okay, also line weight, we can actually change whether it's dash, dotted, if we need to do hidden lines. I just accidentally locked my drawing layer. There's our drawing layer. Life is good. We could do more layers if we wanted to, but for this drawing, we really only need the one layer to make that work. Don't worry about XRF and blocks. We won't be using those in the course of this course, but they are some cool, very powerful things. I also just want to point out there is a ribbon down here in terms of draw, annotate, and modify. Those are going to be some of those basic commands that we have, but we do still have our command line here. Command line is going to allow us to actually take on and type in all of our commands, and I'm going to do a lot of that today. So if you see stuff appearing in the command line, that's what's happening. We also have access to our OSnap menu, okay, our object snaps, just like we would have in a regular AutoCAD, okay, as well as tracking. If you end up checking off orthographic here, I just want to click on this because somebody's going to do this in the course of this assignment. If you click off on orthographic, it's only going to allow you to draw lines vertically and horizontally. Please don't click off the orthographic button. Lastly, we do have a polar tracking button. I want to show you this one because you haven't seen this before, but yours probably set to 90 by default, and what happens is it means that you can snap lines to 90 degrees. Okay, oh, I've turned mine off. I'm going to turn it back on. That's going to allow you to snap lines, there we go, vertically and horizontally to 90 degrees. That's important. But since we're going to be working in oblique, which uses 45-degree angles, and isometric, which uses 30-degree angles, those may actually be important for this one. So I'm going to temporarily set this to 45. I notice that my picture is sitting over top of this menu, so go play with it on your desktop and or laptop, and actually select 45 here. Let's start drawing. Now, I recommend when you do the assignment for the isometric that you go ahead and you use something that is a blocky font. Now the reason for this is, excuse me, it's much easier to actually draw things in isometric and orthographic if they are right angles, 90 degrees. There are ways to do curves, there are ways to do other angles, but we're just trying to avoid that while we illustrate what isometric and orthographic are for you. So let's talk here. My first initial is M, so we're going to do something resembling this M. I'm going to do a bit of a choose your own adventure here in terms of what I'm actually drawing and make my own version of this, and we'll measure it out and go from there. I'm going to go make sure I'm in my model view. We're going to go grab some lines. We're going to make sure that we are in the drawing layer, and we're going to start drawing. I'm going to make my, my letter M 6 units tall. Now, I just drew a line straight up, and I typed in 6, and you'll notice that nothing really appeared except for this little dot here. This is because my scale right now is totally off. If I draw a line here on my screen, you can see that it is like 2,000 units tall. And that's not good. That means that I'm just zoomed way the heck out. I could zoom manually in on this, and you can see the line's getting bigger, or I can click the button at the top here to zoom extents. It's going to zoom in and just show me just that line. Now I made this 6 units tall. I'm going to make a few arbitrary decisions here, and again, when you show me your initials in isometric, exactly how you drew the initials is not actually that important. I mean, you know, pick your method and go with it, okay? I'm just going to make the top of the M 1 unit across. I'm going to go 1 unit down. I'm going to go another 1 unit across. I'm going to go 1 unit up. I'm going to go 1 unit across, 1 unit down, 1 unit across, 1 unit up, 1 unit across. And we're going to go 6 units back down, and then I'm going to start to use my ortho snaps by floating over things to give myself nice 90-degree angles. Okay, I know that right to the top here is going to be 5 units, so I'm just going to go 4 units up. I'm going to go across by 1 unit. I'm actually going to get kind of fancy here and do the M this way. And we're going to go 4 units down, and then we're just going to finish at 1 unit across. What that's going to let us do is, if I can type in 180 degrees here, that should finish our letter M right there. Okay, that is a rather ugly M. Perhaps we will, perhaps we'll change this and delete some lines and actually make this a little bit more correct. There we go. Okay, so this is vaguely the letter M. What does the blocky text do? This doesn't look quite right. Let's mess with this a little bit. Oh, it sends the middle all the way down. That's what it does. It builds up the edges and it sends the middle all the way down. Why don't we do that? It's not a bad idea. It's gonna make our drawing a little bit more complicated, but that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Now, as with other versions of AutoCAD, you'll notice that I am kind of troubleshooting things as I go. The escape key is, as usual, your friend to get you back to kind of the default menu, and also the tools that you've used before, many of them, like trim, actually still do their job. Okay, so trim is going to allow me to actually cut this out. Okay, now that vaguely looks like the letter M. Again, if we want to mess with it, we have lots of options that we can work with. I am actually going to do that again just because I'm unhappy with it. Another quick trick in AutoCAD is if you press the Enter key will let you do the last command that you did. Okay, we've got something resembling the letter M. That's okay. We're going to roll with this from here, and we're going to draw this thing in in oblique and isometric. So let's do the oblique drawing. Okay, I'm gonna actually grab some text here to illustrate this. Okay, select annotation object. No, not text edit. We want text. Let me see where my text button is under annotate. Okay, M text. That was the term I was looking for. Okay, I'm gonna call this oblique. Okay, and font size. I don't know, 300. Is that going to be too much? Check mark. Okay. Wow, 300 was way too big. Okay, and again, going into my properties view, I can take a look at this and know that my text height was 300 here, and I should have the ability to mess with that. Looks like I may not have the ability to do that. Okay, in that case, I might have to delete it, and I might have to try this again. Okay, again, multi-line text. Okay, let's draw this out. Oblique. And let's just take this down to like a 12-point font. Check mark. Okay, 12 point is still rather large. That's okay. I'm gonna roll with this now. We'll make it happen, and we will leave it there. Okay, so this is our oblique version. Now let's take the edge of this this drawing, and we know that oblique draws the Z direction, so into the page at a 45-degree angle. I'm going to check my polar snaps. Yes, they are at 45s. That's all good. I'm just going to gently go over here and move my picture out of the way so you can actually see that. There's your 45s right there. And now what's going to happen is I'm going to draw this letter and I'm going to make it 1 unit deep, okay? Whatever my unit happens to be right now, no problems, okay? We're going to go draw, we're going to take my lines, and I'm just going to start drawing 1 unit by 45 degrees. And you can know it's 45 degrees, you can see it here, because it snaps to 45 degrees, okay? Now in this case, I know that I have an object 1 unit across there and there. Now this is where we start to be able to actually put this together in oblique by throwing kind of over and over again the edges that will be visible 1 unit across at 45-degree angles. And I'm just going to throw all of them in here, and then we're going to do some connecting. And all I'm doing right now on my keyboard, and you can't see this right now, is I'm just pressing enter to go to the line tool because it's the last tool I used. And then I'm just typing the number 1 and using the 45-degree angle snap. This is probably going to be my easiest way of doing this. I'm going to start connecting some of these, and we'll notice that the lines here underneath the M, they actually won't, I can actually draw them straight up to an intersection here because they're not, the top of them, they're not going to be visible, okay? They're going to be, if we were to actually define this, they're going to actually end where this line would have terminated, and we can't see that line because of our perspective. Now let's just draw this back down, and I think, oh, actually I think I went in a couple different ways here, and there we go, there we go. I think I have 2 more lines to add to this, and that's just a vertical, or sorry, a horizontal line across here and a horizontal line across here. Now, what we're looking at is clearly an oblique view. What I'm going to do, excuse me, is I'm going to go define a couple of these things just by going to my Layers tab, creating a dimensioning layer, and I'm just going to make sure that dimensioning layer is a color we can work with. I'm going to select it, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw a few things, okay? Because now I have the ability to annotate things. I can actually throw a dimensioning line on here, and I can actually go in and say, yeah, this is definitely oblique, because when I go to my annotate menu, okay, and I dimension something, okay, I should be able to set dimensions between 2 different objects. Now, you'll notice when I zoom out, everything turned green because I think my dimensions are set to be super big. That's okay. I think we might have to go mess with that a little bit. Again, I'm relatively new to AutoCAD Web, so let's see how we can do that. Let's take this and let's go to our properties, and let's find out that this is dimensioning style architecture 125. Okay, I'm just going to turn this down to standard and see if that fixes it. If we change it down to standard, yeah, we get a nice 45-degree angle to show that, yes, this is clearly an oblique style drawing. Okay, life is good. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, and that's basically one of your initials. If you follow that tutorial along with any of the blocky text for your initials, you should be just fine. I'm going to draw the M, the same M, a matching M in isometric now, and I'm going to show you how to convert that, because that's the harder piece. Then we'll talk quickly about how to publish out of AutoCAD Web, and we will we'll go from there and actually have something that works. Now, when we do this in isometric, we were kind of spoiled doing this letter in oblique because all of the horizontal lines, all the lines that would have run in the x-axis, they actually stayed horizontal. They stayed where they were. I'm just very quickly going to throw a couple dimensions on here. Properties, dim style, I'm just going to change this to standard, and I'm going to add some dimensions on here, okay, because I need to know a couple things. Like, I need to know kind of how big this was so I can redraw this, and there's a couple dimensions on here that are actually kind of important for me. Like the 1 there, I know this is 1, I know this is 1. I really need to know how high this section right here is. It is 0.5. Life is good, nothing wrong with that, okay? I think everything else here is 1s except for this dimension here, which is a 3. That's all good, nothing wrong with that. We can dimension it out. Now, I just want to add, your initials for this activity don't need dimensions on them, so you don't need to do this at all. I'm just doing this to make sure I understand what all of my dimensions are before I start drawing the next piece, okay? I know that I've got dimensions because I was the one who drew them of 1 and 1 and 1, and 1. All of these are 1s, and that's the piece that I really need to know right now to get me through the next piece of this drawing. There we go. Okay, all 1s. Life is good. Okay, let's draw this M in isometric. We're going to start by checking ourselves over to the drawing layer and starting in our draw function. Now, I need a first line. I'm going to use this line right here along the edge of the M as my front corner. Okay, I'm going to align it with this because that makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to draw it, and I know it's 6 units tall because it was on the dimensioning. Okay, now what I need to do next is where this gets a little complicated. In the X direction, which is this direction, I need to draw things at a 30-degree angle. So I'm going to change my polar snaps to 30s, and I'm actually going to draw this out at a 30-degree angle. Okay, I know it says 150, but what it's actually doing is 150 degrees away from 3 o'clock if we were using an analog clock, so from the right-hand side. And that's actually going to give us a way to start drawing these things. I'm going to zoom in so you can see at 30-degree angles, just like we would in our other drawing. Okay. And I'm just typing in 1s and 0.5s here because I know that all of my dimensions in this area are 0.5 tall and they are 1 unit long. Now what I should end up with is the edge of the M, and we can kind of see what we've got there. This edge that I just drew here is the same as the top edge of the M here, except all of the X direction lines that run horizontally in this drawing are actually running at a 30-degree angle here. It's kind of that simple. From here, I'm just going to draw out the rest of this drawing and make sure that I get it all lined up the way we had it in the initial drawing. Everything's at a 30-degree angle if it was in the X direction. And here we go. Here we go. And let's finish this guy off here. I believe that's 4, and I believe that's 1. So there's the front of our letter M. And in this case, we can see that this front of the letter M is the same as the front of this letter M, except everything is at a 30-degree angle. Now, turning this into isometric from here is stupid easy. Okay, all we have to do is that exact same thing we did before, except this time we're doing it at 30-degree angles. And 30-degree angles are relatively easy to draw once your polar tracking is on, because it's going to make your life relatively easy. This is where the catharsis in CAD happens. Once you get really good at this, you can kind of meditate your way through CAD drawings. There's nothing wrong with that. Notice that when I drew that 1, it actually met up with this line here, which is great because it means that I don't have to actually do any verticals on this one. I can actually just leave those as is because that's how the letter M is going to show up. Again, isometric is not how your eye sees this. Your eye would actually see a little gap between here because of the nature of perspective. Okay, got a couple more lines to add in here. I'm just going to throw them in to make sure that we have this drawing complete. Notice that up here, I have a line that's going to run at 30 degrees, and if I run at 1 unit like I'm supposed to, it's going to run way the heck past this line, and that doesn't quite make sense. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that line at 30 degrees until it hits an intersect. Now, this is getting a little complicated because I have a center point there. Now, in this case, I think the center point is the same as the 30-degree angle line, but I'm not actually sure. So I'm just going to draw it past, and I'm going to trim away the part that I don't need just to make sure that I get it exactly right. Go back to my draw, finish this off. Here we go, 1 unit that way, straight up, and then we're going to take 1 unit down at 30 degrees. Okay, and again, I'm going to do the same trick I did before. I'm just going to trim off the part I don't need, just so I make sure that it's totally accurate. Now, that letter M over here is the isometric version of this letter M over here. They are, for all intents and purposes, the same object with the same dimensions, the same scale. And they're basically going to be our drawing. Now, let's finish this thing off because I do need you to export this. I do need you to send this to me so that you can show that you understand basically isometric and oblique. And to do that, we're going to go use the export panel here. And first of all, I do recommend saving occasionally. So I'm just going to click and save this to make sure that the drawing is saved. Notice that it actually, the command line here tells you that you have saved it, and that is all good. From here, we do need to print it. And AutoCAD uses the term plot for this because many of the drawings that go through architecture and those sort of things get actually created on a plotter, a machine that physically draws them. And so we're going to use plot in this case. The other option we have is we can actually type in plot into our command line and press enter. I like that. It makes me feel like the early days of my using AutoCAD when we did everything in the command line. Now, right now it says what to print, display. We could print this page, but we remember back to how we were doing AutoCAD, we never used an actual model view to print. We always used a layout view. So let's actually hit cancel here and let's hop over to our views and let's run over to a layout view. Now I have a pretty blank page here. This is no good. Okay, but we know that we have that zoom extents. So we're going to zoom extents this, and I'm just going to zoom in on these two. And obviously those are really awful drawings to submit. Please don't submit drawings like that. Make sure they are of a layer color that we can actually read. Okay, again, dimensions are not required on this one, so don't worry about this. Your drawing does not need to look like this. If you show me the isometric and you show me the oblique drawing, that's really what I'm looking for. I just use this to illustrate some things. If I really wanted to, I could actually just make the dimensioning layer go away by turning it off, and that's actually, I think, what I'm going to do here. Now, weird thing happened here. This happened to me when I was first learning how to use AutoCAD Web. I have a grid in the background. That's what those lines are. And I'm not sure that I want it. Okay, I don't know if I like that grid. Now normally in AutoCAD there'd be a button down here to make the grid go away, but if I just double click in this pane, it doesn't really show up. So I'm actually going to go find out if there's a grid command. I'm going to type in grid, okay? And hey, look, there is a grid command. It does crop up. In AutoCAD proper, this is called grid mode, what I'm about to do. But when I click grid, it actually gives me a bunch of options down here in the menu, okay? It says on, off, snap, major grid, adaptive grid, all sorts of things. In my case, I really just want the grid to go away. So if I press off, life is good. My grid disappears. Now, I've got these. I probably want to throw some sort of text on this thing just to make sure that I know what we're talking about here. Okay, let's throw this in. Initials in orthographic, oblique and isometric. Okay, and we had the text height before with 12 and it was way too big, so I'm just going to add that in, and I think that text height is still a little bit too big. I think I'm going to modify it down to about size 2, just so it fits in my page. I guess we're going to go size 1. Okay, there we go, that looks about right. Okay, this is a nice assignment now. This shows me that you understand isometric and that you understand oblique. It tells me everything that I need to know, and we can go ahead and plot this now. Okay. Type in plot. Okay, it says what to print, current layout. I like that. It's a good way to go. Okay, scale 1:1. You don't need to mess with the scale. Okay, standard ISO paper. I'm all good with A4. It doesn't really bother me what size you use. Orientation landscape. Life is good. Print to PDF. It's going to say PDF is generating. And what's going to happen now is when it's all done, it's going to tell you that you're ready to download the PDF. Hey, look, it did that. Okay, I'm going to click download PDF. And what's going to happen, it's going to ask me where you want to save it. Okay, in this case, I'm just going to save it to my desktop. And I'm going to pop it open to make sure that it looks the way it's supposed to. Hey, look at that, it does. Okay, this is the document that you should upload to the course folder into D2L to show that you've done the initials in isometric and oblique. That's AutoCAD Web as a basic tutorial. I'm going to try to post a few more tutorials on how to use this over the next couple days, specifically how to do the first 4 CAD basics assignments if anybody is still working on those, because I know for some people that is something that they are still working on, the basics, so snap, throwing star, etc. And we'll try to do those with Web App because some of you, that's the situation you're in right now, and we're going to try to meet you where you're at on that one. With that being said, cheers, have a good day, enjoy your drawings, and we'll see you next time.